2018 Supercrit finally here. Big thanks to Psimet for hosting the race this year. This is a 1.7 mile circuit course that is run at Blackhawk Farms Raceway. This race is always a blast because the course is wide open and the pavement is perfect. Our team had about 5 guys in the race, which I believe was the second largest team, with only XXX having more guys. So we set out with the plan of just generally controlling the race and making decisive moves when we got the opportunity. Toward the end of the first lap, myself and Dustin are controlling the pace at the front, and our rider sends a pretty large attack. I respond pretty quickly and I'm able to close the gap. And instead of immediately just sitting on his wheel, try to keep the pace high, because through the finishing straight there was a bit of a crosswind, and my hope was to try and get a little bit of a split in the field. It doesn't end up working out, so I shut the move down and fall back through the pace line to recover. As I fall back, and the group is slowly recovering from the move, our teammate Greg goes on the offensive with an attack of his own. It looks pretty solid, and no one is chasing him, so I begin to move back towards the front of the group to make a blocking effort. It starts to look like Greg is coming back to the group, but we've got almost our whole team near the front to chase any moves that come. A few riders speed up to bridge across to Greg. The field thins out a little, and Hassan has a mechanical. His cleat broke and he pulled out of his pedal. Luckily he stays up and didn't cause any issues in the pack. I moved through to front to fill in the gap that he left. After a few laps of nothing happening, there's an attack on the right side of the field. The group is a little slow to respond, but Greg goes after it and the group thins out into a pace line again. The move is caught pretty quickly, and I see this as my opportunity to counterattack. I'm off the front, and a quick glance back shows me that the group looks like it's coming back pretty quickly, so I don't put in too big of an effort to try to stay away here. As soon as the peloton catches me, on cue John jumps off and he's flying off the front. And I know that I can sit up because the rest of the team is on the front of the race as well. Dan from XXX jumps to try to bridge, and I let him go, as I know if the two of them can get some space, they have a pretty good chance of staying away. After Dan jumps, there are a few more pairs that try to go up the road as well. This gets the rest of the group to chase as well, and the small gap that John and Dan had been building closes down pretty quickly. As we catch the front of the group, I'm ready to go again with another counter, and Jason of Cut and Crew has the same idea. We move through the corner, but everyone else was able to speed up and stay on our wheels, so I pretty quickly shut this move down. A few riders managed to jump off the front and have a gap that is threatening enough to grow. So as one of the larger teams in the race, it's up to us to bring the move back if we want a decent placement. I pull through as John just took a hard pull, and with Greg on my wheel I know that we should be able to pull this move back within the next lap. The group starts to slow a bit and the guy up the road is in sight. I now know that this is a good time to attack. Carrying my speed through the field, I jump as I get near the front riders. As I come by the rider off the front, I tell him to get on my wheel if he can. I try to keep my pace steady, as it looks like we've got a little bit of a gap. 3 other riders came with me when I jumped, so we began to take turns on the front. Right here's a pretty important moment. Dan was on the front and pulling at a pretty good pace into the wind. When he pulls off, the rider in blue should have pulled through and continued the pace. Instead, he pulls off almost immediately and looks back. And when he does, it causes Brian from Bicycle Heaven to look back as well. And although Brian is keeping his speed up, it would have been better if he just kept pulling through. At this point, we still had a pretty decent gap, definitely enough to keep riding hard. But the rider in blue stated once or twice they thought we were getting caught and that we should stop. This wasn't the case though. Our group should still keep pushing the pace. Myself and Dan encouraged the brake to keep working, and we do so until we hit the finish line, when the group clearly caught us. This was a mistake on our breakaway's part. During and immediately after the race, I reflected on this moment, and I really thought that if everyone had stayed a bit more dedicated and organized in the breakaway, that we probably really had a chance. There were only about 3 or 4 laps left in the race at this point, and we had 5 strong riders that really could have upped the pace. Add the fact that both Intent and Triple X, the two biggest teams in the race, had members in the breakaway, and you have a pretty good combination to win. After we're caught, the group is again soft pedaling as everyone tries to recover slightly. This would have been a good time to attack had I not just done so. With the rest of the team up front, however, I know that we should have any threatening moves covered. An attack goes off the front, and with about 2 laps to go, I know that our team can't let it get too far up the road. I wait to see if there's going to be anyone else who's going to try and chase it. When I don't see anyone else making a move, I head off the front to start to lay it down to reel that move back in. I know at this point that I'm burning one of my last matches, but I really don't want this guy going up the road solo if he's strong enough to stay away. I reel him back in and he sits up along with the rest of the field behind me. After chasing that rider down, John's in a pretty good spot in front of me, and he sees Dan attack up the right side of the road and follows along with the rest of the field. Dustin and I notice that John and Dan are getting a pretty decent gap, and we decide to try and move to the front quickly to try and slow the field down. A 2-man break this late in the race is a really good opportunity for John and for the team. With Dustin, Greg, and I now on the front, we can shut down any moves that come while also controlling the pace at the front of the race. John and Dan are up the road with a pretty okay gap, but it's not as established as we would like, and the riders on the front aren't really giving up without a fight. We're sitting on wheels and not doing any work, trying to tire out the chasers who keep taking poles. Coming into the last corner before 1 lap to go, there's a solo flyer to try and bridge to the break. Dustin and I don't jump on it. Neither did anyone else. And because we wanted to try and keep the rest of the race slow, if that rider is trying to bridge, he's either going to be pretty gassed when he makes it to the breakaway, or he's not going to make it, and that's going to be good for us. Coming across the line with 1 to go, John is still in the break up the road, but they're coming back, and it's getting kind of close. At this point, it's really iffy as to whether they're going to stay off the front. A lot of riders are coming through the front, and the rest of the team has to be ready to both try and disrupt the field still, as well as set up for the sprint if that's what it comes down to. A few riders end up causing the field to push the pace higher and higher, and it starts to become clear that the breakaway is more than likely going to get caught. Dustin, Greg, and I are now just trying to stay at the front to make a move. We end up catching the break right before the last corner. Dustin and I are in pretty good position, but he gets caught behind a wheel too long before he can start his sprint, and then I get pinched a few times and I sat up in frustration. I also noticed in this race and the other race that I did on the same day, my awareness of what wheel to follow in the sprint was atrocious. I kept moving into spots that weren't open or choosing to follow people that I was already passing. It's really something that I need to be aware of so I can consciously work on improving it. I just need to focus on where I am in the pack and kind of see through the riders in front of me to choose where to go before I just start following wheels blindly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you want to see more like this from me, don't forget to hit subscribe. See you next time.